I still remember the exact moment. I knew we were going to die out there. The snow was so thick I couldn't see my own hands in front of my face, and my wife Emma was shaking so hard, her teeth were chattering like a broken machine. We had been hiking for 3 days when the storm hit, and now we were lost in the middle of nowhere, with night coming fast. That's when I saw it through the white curtain of snow, a dark shape that looked like a cabin. I grabbed Emma's hand and pulled her toward it, praying it wasn't just my frozen brain playing tricks on me. My name is Marcus, and I'm 26 years old. Emma is 24. We got married 6 months ago, and this hiking trip was supposed to be our big adventure before I started my new job. Everyone told us not to go hiking in the mountains in November, but we thought we knew better. We thought we were prepared. We were wrong about everything. The cabin appeared out of nowhere, sitting in a small clearing surrounded by tall pine trees bent under the weight of snow. It looked old, maybe 100 years old, with wooden walls that had turned gray from weather and time. The windows were dark and empty, like dead eyes, but it had a roof and 4 walls, and that was all that mattered. I tried the door and it swung open with a long, creaky sound that made Emma jump. Inside the cabin was freezing cold, but at least we were out of the wind. I pulled out my flashlight and looked around. There was one big room with a fireplace made of stones, a wooden table with 2 chairs, and a narrow bed in the corner, covered with a dusty blanket. Cobwebs hung from the ceiling like dirty curtains. Everything was covered in a thick layer of dust that made Emma sneeze 3 times in a row. "Is anyone here?" Emma called out, her voice shaking. Nobody answered. The cabin felt empty, like nobody had been inside for years. I checked every corner with my flashlight, looking in the small closet and under the bed. Nothing. Just dust and mouse droppings and a few empty cans of food that were so rusty I couldn't even read the labels. I dropped my backpack on the floor and it made a heavy thud that echoed in the empty cabin. Emma sat down on one of the chairs and started crying. Not loud crying, just quiet tears running down her red cheeks. I knew she was scared. I was scared too, but I had to be strong for both of us. "It's okay, baby," I said, kneeling down in front of her and taking her frozen hands in mine. "We're safe now. We'll make a fire, get warm, and wait out the storm. My phone is dead, but yours might work in the morning when the storm passes. We'll call for help and everything will be fine." Emma nodded, but she didn't stop crying. I kissed her forehead and got to work. First, I needed to make a fire before we both froze to death. I checked the fireplace and found some old ashes, but no wood. There was a metal box next to the fireplace with a few pieces of newspaper inside that were yellow and brittle. I needed more than that. "I'm going to look for firewood," I told Emma. "I saw a wood pile on the side of the cabin when we came in. I'll be right back." "Don't leave me," Emma said, grabbing my arm. Her eyes were wide with fear. "I'll be gone for 2 minutes," I promised. "You can see me through the window the whole time. I need to get wood or we'll freeze." She finally let go of my arm, and I went back outside into the storm. The wind hit me like a punch in the face, and I had to hold onto the wall to keep from falling. I made my way around the side of the cabin where I'd seen the woodpile. Sure enough, there was a stack of firewood covered with an old tarp that was half buried in snow. I grabbed as much as I could carry and hurried back inside. Emma was standing at the window watching me, her face pressed against the glass. When I came back in, she hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. I dropped the wood on the floor and started building a fire. My fingers were so numb I could barely hold the matches. But on the 3rd try, the newspaper caught fire. The flames grew slowly, licking at the dry wood, and soon we had a real fire going. The warmth felt like heaven. We both sat on the floor in front of the fireplace, holding our hands out to the flames. Slowly, feeling came back to my fingers and toes, along with a painful tingling sensation that made me wince. Emma stopped shaking. The cabin started to feel less like a tomb and more like a shelter. "We're going to be okay," I said, putting my arm around Emma's shoulders. She leaned her head against my chest and I could feel her heart beating fast. We ate some energy bars from my backpack and drank water from Emma's bottle. The fire crackled and popped, throwing dancing shadows on the walls. Outside, the wind howled like a pack of wolves, and snow kept piling up against the windows. I tried not to think about how deep it might get, or how long we might be stuck here. This place is creepy, Emma said, looking around the cabin. Who do you think lived here? Probably a hunter or someone who worked in the forest, I said. A long time ago. Look how old everything is. Why would they just leave it? Emma asked. Leave all this stuff behind. I shrugged. Maybe they died. Maybe they just moved away and forgot about it. Does it matter? I'm just grateful it's here. Emma nodded, but she still looked uncomfortable. I didn't blame her. There was something strange about the cabin, something I couldn't quite explain. It felt too empty, too quiet, like it was holding its breath and waiting for something. We decided to try to sleep. I pulled the dusty blanket off the bed and shook it out the door. Then we spread our sleeping bags on top of the bed. It was narrow, meant for one person, but we squeezed together. Emma fell asleep almost immediately, exhausted from our long day in the snow. But I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling and listening to the storm. That's when I heard it. A sound from outside. Not the wind, not snow falling from the roof, something else. A creaking sound, like footsteps on wood. I sat up slowly, trying not to wake Emma. The fire had burned down to glowing embers, casting a dim red light through the room. I listened hard, my heart pounding in my ears. There it was again. Creak, 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 like someone walking on the porch outside. I grabbed my flashlight and stood up, my legs shaking. I walked slowly to the window and looked out into the darkness. The snow was still falling hard and I could barely see anything. But then the clouds shifted, and moonlight broke through for just a second. That's when I saw it, another cabin, about 100 yards away through the trees. And from its chimney, a thin line of smoke was rising into the night sky. My blood turned to ice. There was another cabin. Someone else was out here. Someone who had a fire going. Someone who was awake at, I checked my watch, 2:30 in the morning. I stood at the window, frozen, watching that thin line of smoke curl up into the darkness. My mind was racing with 1,000 questions. Who was in that cabin? Why hadn't we seen it before? Why didn't they have any lights on? And the biggest question of all, why didn't they come check on this cabin when they must have seen our fire? I thought about waking Emma, but she was sleeping so peacefully and I didn't want to scare her. Maybe I was seeing things. Maybe it was just my tired brain playing tricks on me. I rubbed my eyes and looked again. No, the smoke was definitely there, a gray line against the black sky. Part of me wanted to go over there right now and ask for help. We could use their phone, get warm food, maybe even get a ride out of here when the storm passed. But another part of me, a deeper, more primitive part, was screaming at me to stay away. Something felt wrong. Why would someone be awake in the middle of the night with no lights on? Why hadn't they checked on us? I decided to wait until morning. In daylight, everything would make more sense. I would tell Emma about the other cabin, and we would go there together and ask for help. Everything would be fine. I kept telling myself that as I climbed back into bed next to Emma, but I barely slept the rest of the night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that line of smoke rising in the darkness. When I finally fell asleep, I had strange dreams. I dreamed I was walking through the snow toward the other cabin. The door was open, and I could see a fire burning inside. But when I got close, the door slammed shut. I knocked and knocked, but nobody answered. Then I heard Emma screaming from somewhere far away, and I tried to run back to our cabin, but my legs wouldn't move. I was stuck in the snow, sinking deeper and deeper, and Emma's screams were getting farther and farther away. I woke up with a gasp. Sunlight was streaming through the windows. The storm had passed. Emma was still asleep beside me, her face peaceful. I got up quietly and went to the window. In the bright morning light, I could see the other cabin clearly now. It was bigger than ours, with fresh paint and a neat pile of firewood stacked outside. Smoke was still coming from the chimney. Someone was definitely there. Emma, wake up, I said gently, shaking her shoulder. There's something I need to show you. She opened her eyes and smiled at me, then sat up and stretched. Did the storm stop? Can we call for help? Look out the window, I said, pointing toward the trees. Emma got up and came to stand beside me. When she saw the other cabin, her mouth fell open. What? When did that get there? We didn't see that yesterday. It was too dark and snowing too hard, I explained. I saw it last night. Someone's there, Emma. They have a fire going. That's great, Emma said, her face lighting up. They can help us. They probably have a phone or a radio or something. Let's go over there right now. But I hesitated. In the bright morning light, my fears from last night seemed silly. Of course we should go ask for help. That's what any normal person would do. But something still didn't feel right. Don't you think it's weird? I asked Emma. They must have seen our smoke yesterday. Why didn't they come check on us? What if they're hiding from something? What if they don't want to be bothered? Emma frowned thinking about it. Maybe they didn't notice. Maybe they were asleep. Or maybe they figured we were okay since we had a fire going. Come on, Marcus. We need help. My phone still doesn't have any signal. We can't just stay here and hope someone finds us. She was right. I was being paranoid. Okay, I said. Let's get ready and go over there. We packed up our things, just in case the people in the other cabin could help us get out of here today. I made sure the fire in our cabin was completely out. Before we left, I took one more look around the dusty room that had saved our lives last night. That's when I noticed something I hadn't seen before. On the wall next to the door, scratched into the old wood, were words. I moved closer to read them. The letters were carved deep, like someone had used a knife and put a lot of force into it. The message made my skin crawl. Stay away from the house in the woods. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. Emma came up behind me and read the words over my shoulder. Her hand gripped my arm tight. Marcus, she whispered. What does that mean? Which house? The one we saw? I don't know, I said, but my voice sounded far away. Maybe it's old. Maybe it doesn't mean anything. Or maybe, Emma said slowly, maybe someone was warning people like us. We stood there staring at those words carved into the wall. They looked old, the wood around them darkened with age, but not that old. Maybe a few years, maybe less. Someone had stayed in this cabin, just like us, and they had seen something. Something bad enough to carve a warning into the wall. We should go home, Emma said. Let's just start walking. Follow our footprints back the way we came. I looked out the window. Fresh snow had covered everything during the night. Our footprints from yesterday were completely gone. The whole world was just a blank white sheet. We don't know which way, I admitted. We got turned around in the storm. We could end up walking in circles or heading deeper into the mountains. Emma's face went pale. She knew I was right. We were lost. Really, truly lost. Our only hope was the cabin through the trees, the one with smoke coming from its chimney, the one someone had warned us to stay away from. What do we do? Emma asked, and I could hear the panic creeping into her voice. I tried to think clearly. We had two choices. We could stay here in this abandoned cabin, hoping someone would come looking for us. But nobody knew exactly where we were. We had told Emma's parents we were hiking in the state forest, but that covered hundreds of square miles. It could be days or even weeks before anyone found us. And we only had food for maybe 2 more days. Or we could go to the other cabin and ask for help, ignoring the warning on the wall. Maybe the warning is about something else, I said, trying to convince myself. Maybe it's about a different house. Or maybe whoever wrote it was just scared and confused. We can't just assume the worst. Emma didn't look convinced, but she nodded slowly. Okay, but if anything feels wrong, even a little bit wrong, we run. Promise me. I promise, I said. We stepped outside into the bright morning sun. The day was beautiful now, cold and clear, with the sun making the snow sparkle like a million tiny diamonds. Birds were singing in the trees. It was hard to believe this was the same place that had been so dark and terrifying just a few hours ago. We started walking toward the other cabin, our boots crunching through the snow. The forest was silent, except for our footsteps and breathing. As we got closer, I could see the cabin more clearly. It really was much nicer than the one we had stayed in. The wood looked new, or at least well-maintained. There were curtains in the windows, though they were closed. The woodpile was neatly stacked and covered with a good tarp. Someone took care of this place. We were about 50 feet away when Emma grabbed my arm and pulled me behind a large tree. Wait, she whispered. Look! I peeked around the tree trunk. The front door of the cabin had just opened. A man stepped out onto the porch. He was tall and thin, wearing jeans and a heavy flannel shirt. He had a thick beard and long hair pulled back in a ponytail. He stood on the porch for a moment, looking around at the forest. Then he did something strange. He walked to the edge of the porch and looked straight at our cabin through the trees. He stood there for a long time, just staring. Then he went back inside and closed the door. He knows we're there, Emma whispered. He saw our cabin. He saw the smoke. He knows we're there, and he didn't come check on us. My heart was pounding. She was right. The man had looked directly at our cabin. He must have known we were there. So why didn't he come over? Why didn't he offer to help? Maybe he's just shy, I said weakly. Some people like to be alone. That's why they live out here. Or maybe, Emma said, maybe there's a reason someone carved that warning into the wall. I didn't know what to do. We were so close now. The cabin was right there. We could just knock on the door and ask for help. But every instinct in my body was screaming at me to turn around and run. Before I could decide, the door opened again. This time, a woman came out. She was younger than the man, maybe in her 30s, with blonde hair and a pretty face. She was carrying a bucket. She walked to the side of the cabin where there was a hand pump for water. As she started pumping, she sang a song. I couldn't hear the words, but her voice was beautiful, clear and sweet in the cold morning air. She seemed normal, nice even. Maybe we were worrying about nothing. Emma must have been thinking the same thing because she whispered, "She seems okay. Maybe we should just go talk to them." I was about to agree when something happened that changed everything. Another person came out of the cabin, a girl, maybe 16 or 17 years old. She had dark hair and was wearing an old dress that looked too thin for the cold weather. But that's not what made me freeze. It was her face. She looked terrified. Her eyes were wide, and she kept looking back at the door like she was afraid of what might come out of it. The woman at the pump saw her and immediately stopped singing. Her whole body went stiff. She said something to the girl that I couldn't hear, but her lips were pressed together tight, and her face was angry. The girl backed away, shaking her head. The woman grabbed her arm and yanked her close, saying something right in her face. The girl started crying. Then the man appeared in the doorway. He said something, and both the woman and the girl went completely still. The girl wiped her tears quickly and walked back into the cabin with her head down. The woman followed, carrying her bucket of water. The man looked around the forest one more time before going inside and closing the door. Emma and I stayed hidden behind the tree, not moving, barely breathing. What had we just seen? Was that girl in trouble? Was she being held against her will? Or were we reading too much into a simple family argument? "Something's wrong there," Emma whispered. "Did you see that girl's face? She was scared, Marcus. Really scared." I had seen it. I had seen the way the girl flinched when the man appeared. I had seen the way the woman grabbed her arm. I had seen it all, and I couldn't unsee it. "We need to go back to our cabin," I said. "Right now, quietly." We backed away from the tree, moving as carefully as we could, trying not to make any sound. We had only gone a few steps when I heard a noise that made my heart stop. A dog barking, and it was close. "Run!" I said to Emma. We ran back toward our cabin, stumbling through the snow, branches whipping at our faces. Behind us, the barking got louder. I risked a look back and saw a big black dog running toward us, its teeth bared. It was fast, much faster than us in the deep snow. We reached our cabin and I yanked the door open. We dove inside and I slammed it shut just as the dog crashed into it from the other side. The whole cabin shook. The dog snarled and barked, scratching at the door with its claws. I held the door closed with all my strength, looking for something to block it with. Emma dragged the table over and we shoved it against the door. The dog kept barking for what felt like forever, but was probably only a few minutes. Then, suddenly, it went quiet. I heard a man's voice call out, "Here, boy, come here." The dog barked once more, and then I heard it running away through the snow. Emma and I collapsed on the floor, gasping for breath. We were both shaking, and this time, it wasn't from the cold. "They sicked their dog on us," Emma said. "They saw us, and they sent their dog after us." "We don't know that," I said, but I didn't believe my own words. Maybe the dog just ran loose. Maybe they didn't know. Emma gave me a look that said she knew I was lying to myself. "Marcus, we need to get out of here, right now. I don't care if we get lost. I don't care if we have to walk for days. We can't stay here." She was right. I knew she was right. But I also knew that if we started walking now, in unfamiliar territory with no compass and no map, we could easily die out there. The temperature was below freezing. We didn't have enough food. If we got caught in another storm, we wouldn't survive. "Let's wait until tonight," I said. "We'll sneak past their cabin in the dark and head downhill. Rivers and streams flow downhill, and if we follow water, it will eventually lead to civilization. We just need to wait for dark so they don't see us." Emma nodded, but she looked miserable. What about that girl? She asked quietly. What if she needs help? What if they're hurting her? I'd been trying not to think about that. We don't know what's going on there, I said. Maybe she's their daughter and they're just strict parents. Maybe we saw a normal family argument and we're making it into something it's not. You don't believe that, Emma said. No, I admitted. I don't. But what can we do? There are at least 2 of them, maybe more. They have a dog, we have nothing. If we try to help and something goes wrong, we all end up in trouble. We spent the rest of the day in the cabin, speaking in whispers, jumping at every sound. I kept watch at the window, making sure nobody came near. Around noon, I saw smoke stop coming from the other cabin's chimney. An hour later, I heard an engine start. I peeked through a crack in the curtain and saw an old pickup truck driving away from the other cabin, heading down a trail through the woods that I hadn't noticed before. They have a road, I told Emma excitedly. They have a truck and a road. If we can follow that road, we can get out of here. But Emma shook her head. What if they come back? What if they find us on their road? We don't know where they went or when they'll be back. She was right again. It was too risky. We decided to stick with our plan to wait until dark and then head downhill away from the cabins. The afternoon dragged by slowly. We ate the last of our food and tried to stay calm. I kept watching the window, but the truck didn't come back. The other cabins sat there silent and empty-looking. Maybe they were gone for the day. Maybe they had gone to town. As the sun started to set, Emma suddenly grabbed my arm. Marcus, look. I looked where she was pointing. The door of the other cabin had just opened. The girl came out. She wasn't wearing a coat, just that same thin dress. She looked around carefully, then started running toward our cabin. She's coming here, Emma whispered. Should we let her in? I didn't have time to decide. The girl was already at our door, knocking softly but urgently. Please, I heard her say. Please help me. I know you're in there. I saw you this morning. Please. Emma was already moving toward the door. We have to help her, she said. I pushed the table away and opened the door. The girl practically fell inside. She was crying and shivering. Emma immediately took off her coat and wrapped it around the girl's shoulders. Thank you, the girl sobbed. Thank you. I didn't know if you would help me. I didn't know if I could trust you. It's okay, Emma said gently. You're safe now. Tell us what's wrong. Who are those people? Are they hurting you? The girl nodded, tears streaming down her face. They took me, she said, 6 months ago. I was hitchhiking and they seemed nice, so I got in their truck. But they brought me here and they won't let me leave. They make me work all day and they lock me in my room at night. Please, you have to help me get away. My mind was reeling. This was so much worse than I had imagined. These people were kidnappers, criminals, dangerous. Where are they now? I asked. They went to town to get supplies, the girl said. They'll be back in a few hours. That's why I ran over here. This is my only chance. But we have to leave now. If they come back and find me gone, they'll come looking, and they'll know you helped me. Emma looked at me. We have to get her out of here. We have to get all of us out of here. The truck, I said. They drove down a road. If we follow it, we can make it to town. No, the girl said urgently. They'll come back on that road. We'll run right into them. There's another way. A hiking trail that leads down the mountain. It's longer but safer. I've seen them use it when they go hunting. I can show you. I looked out the window. It would be dark soon. We could travel by moonlight and be long gone before the couple came back. This could work. Okay, I said. Let's go, right now. We grabbed our backpacks and followed the girl outside. She led us away from both cabins, into the thick forest. She moved quickly, despite being barefoot and wearing only a thin dress and Emma's coat. Emma and I struggled to keep up. We had been walking for maybe 15 minutes when the girl suddenly stopped. Did you hear that? She whispered. I listened. At first, I didn't hear anything. Then faintly, I heard the sound of a truck engine. They were back. They were back early. Run, the girl said, and we ran. We crashed through the forest, branches scratching our faces, our boots sinking into the snow. Behind us, I could hear shouting. They had discovered the girl was gone. They were coming after us. This way, the girl panted. leading us down a steep slope. We slid and stumbled, grabbing at trees to keep from falling. My lungs burned. Emma was crying, but she kept running. The forest got darker as the sun set. Soon it was hard to see where we were going, but the girl seemed to know the way. She led us along a narrow path that wound between huge rocks and fallen trees. The shouting behind us got fainter. Maybe we were losing them. Then suddenly, the girl stopped so fast that Emma almost ran into her. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." I came up beside her and saw what had made her stop. We had come to the edge of a cliff. Below us, maybe 30 feet down, was a frozen stream. The path ended here. There was nowhere else to go. "Is there another way?" I asked desperately. The girl shook her head. "This trail always had a bridge here. They must have destroyed it. They knew I might try to escape this way. They planned for it." Behind us, I could see flashlight beams cutting through the darkness. They were getting closer. We were trapped. "We have to climb down," Emma said, looking over the edge. "It's too steep," I said. "We'll fall." "We don't have a choice," Emma said. She was right. I went first, finding handholds in the rocky cliff face, my feet slipping on the icy rocks. Emma came next, and then the girl. We made it about halfway down when I heard the man's voice above us. "There you are, you little thief. Come back up here right now." I looked up and saw him standing at the edge of the cliff, shining his flashlight down on us. The woman was next to him. They didn't look angry. They looked worse than angry. They looked cold and calm and determined. "You made a big mistake," the woman called down to us. "That girl is our daughter. She's mentally ill, and she runs away sometimes. She tells lies. You're making this worse by helping her." "Don't listen to them," the girl said. "They're lying. I'm not their daughter. My name is Sarah Chen. I'm from Portland. My parents have been looking for me for 6 months. Please don't let them take me back." I believed her. Everything about this felt wrong. These people were lying, but what could I do? They were above us, and we were stuck on the cliff face. "Just send her back up," the man said. "Send her up, and you two can go. We won't hurt you. We don't want trouble. We just want our daughter." "Call the police," I shouted up to them. "If she's really your daughter, call the police and let them sort it out." The man and woman looked at each other. Then the woman did something that made my blood run cold. She smiled. "We don't have cell service out here," she said sweetly. "But you know that already, don't you? That's why you couldn't call for help when you got lost." They knew we were lost. They had known all along, and they hadn't helped us. They had let us freeze in that abandoned cabin while they sat warm in their house. They had sent their dog after us. They were not good people. "Keep climbing," I told Emma and Sarah. "Get to the bottom." We climbed as fast as we dared. Above us, I heard the man say something I couldn't make out. Then I heard a sound that turned my insides to water. The dog barking. I looked up and saw the dog at the edge of the cliff. The man was holding its collar. "Last chance," he called down. "Send the girl up, or I let the dog go." I knew he would do it. I could see it in his face. And I knew that if he let that dog go, it would jump down onto the rocks where we clung, and all of us would fall to our deaths. That's when Sarah did something incredibly brave. She looked at me and Emma and said, "I'm sorry. This is my fault. I'll go back. Save yourselves." "No," Emma said fiercely. "We're not letting them take you." But Sarah was already climbing back up. "Tell my parents I love them," she said. "Tell them I tried." I watched her climb back up toward the man and woman, and I felt like the worst coward in the world. But what else could I do? If I tried to stop her, we would all die on these rocks. Sarah reached the top, and the man grabbed her arm. He dragged her away from the edge, and I heard her cry out once, then silence. The woman looked down at us one more time. "If you tell anyone about this," she called down, "we'll say you kidnapped our daughter, and we had to rescue her." Who do you think they'll believe? The nice family who lives here year-round, or the 2 city kids who got themselves lost? Then they were gone. Emma and I finished climbing down to the frozen stream. We stood there in the darkness, holding each other, both of us crying. I had never felt so helpless in my entire life. We had left that girl with those monsters, and there was nothing we could do about it. Except there was. "We follow the stream down," I said to Emma. "We get to a road, we find help, and we come back with the police. We're going to save her, Emma, I promise you." We walked all night, following that frozen stream through the dark forest. Sometimes, we fell through the ice into freezing water. Sometimes, we had to climb over fallen trees or around huge boulders. But we kept going. As the sun came up, we heard the most beautiful sound in the world. A car engine. We stumbled out of the forest onto a paved road just as a pickup truck came around the bend. The driver stopped when he saw us. Two frozen, exhausted people stumbling out of the woods. "Please help us," I said. "There's a girl. She's been kidnapped. We need the police." The man grabbed his phone and made the call. Within an hour, the forest was full of police cars and rescue vehicles. I told them everything. I showed them on a map where the cabins were. I gave them Sarah's name and description. The police went up the mountain with a helicopter and four-wheel drive vehicles. Emma and I waited at the ranger station, wrapped in blankets, drinking hot coffee that tasted better than anything I had ever tasted in my life. It took them 6 hours, but they found the cabin. They arrested the man and woman whose real names were David and Margaret Frost, and they found Sarah, locked in a small room with no windows. She was okay. She was alive. When they brought her down from the mountain and we saw her again, all three of us just hugged and cried for a long time. She thanked us over and over. We apologized over and over for leaving her up there, even for just one night. The police told us later that David and Margaret Frost had been wanted in 3 states. Sarah wasn't their first victim. They had been kidnapping people for years, keeping them as servants, as prisoners. The abandoned cabin where Emma and I had stayed had belonged to their previous victim, a man named Robert Price, who had managed to escape 7 years ago. He was the one who carved the warning into the wall. The police had never found the Frosts' cabin. Robert couldn't remember exactly where it was. It was pure bad luck that Emma and I got lost so close to it. But it was pure good luck that we were there to help Sarah escape. Sarah went home to her parents in Portland. Emma and I went home too. We were on the news for a while. People called us heroes, but we didn't feel like heroes. We felt like two people who got lucky and made the best of a terrible situation. But I learned something important from those 2 days in the woods. I learned that sometimes good and evil aren't complicated. Sometimes evil is just a man and woman who smile while they hurt people. And sometimes good is just having the courage to help someone, even when you're scared, even when it puts you in danger. I also learned to trust my instincts. When something feels wrong, it usually is wrong. That warning carved into the wall was real. The feeling I had when I first saw that smoke rising from the chimney was real. Fear is not always your enemy. Sometimes fear is your friend, trying to keep you alive. Emma and I never went hiking in that forest again. But we stayed in touch with Sarah. She's in college now, studying to be a social worker. She wants to help people who have been through trauma, because she understands what it's like. As for me, I think about those 2 days every time I see smoke rising from a chimney. I think about how close we came to ignoring that girl's cries for help. I think about how easy it would have been to just walk away, to convince ourselves it wasn't our problem. But we didn't walk away, and that makes all the difference. Sometimes, people hide evil behind a smile and a warm fire. Sometimes the scariest monsters don't look like monsters at all. They look like normal people living in a nice cabin in the woods. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is help a stranger, even when every part of you wants to run away and save yourself. That's the lesson I carry with me now. When you see someone who needs help, you help them. You don't look away. You don't tell yourself it's not your business. Because it is your business. Being human means looking out for each other, especially when it's hard, especially when it's scary. Emma and I got married in that little cabin 6 months before our hiking trip, but we had a second ceremony a year later. Sarah was our maid of honor. At the reception, she gave a speech that made everyone cry. She said that Emma and I saved her life. But really, I think she saved ours too. She reminded us that there are things worth fighting for, worth being afraid for, worth risking everything for. The Frosts went to prison for a very long time. The judge said they would probably never get out. 4 other victims came forward during the trial. People who had escaped years ago but were too scared to come forward. Now, they finally got justice. Now, they finally got to tell their stories and be believed. The abandoned cabin where Emma and I stayed that first night was torn down by the Forest Service. They said it was too dangerous, too old. But before they demolished it, I went back one more time. I stood in that dusty room and looked at the warning carved into the wall. I traced the letters with my fingers and I whispered, "Thank you, Robert. Thank you for trying to warn us. We listened. We understood." I'd like to think he somehow knew. I'd like to think that wherever he is now, he knows that his warning saved 3 lives. Mine, Emma's, and Sarah's. That the words he carved into that wall in desperation and fear ended up changing everything. Sometimes I still have nightmares about that night on the cliff. I dream that we left Sarah there and never came back. I dream that we were too scared, too tired, too frozen to do the right thing. I wake up sweating and shaking, and Emma holds me until I can breathe again. Then I remind myself that we did come back. We did the right thing. Sarah is safe and free and living the life she deserves. The other thing I learned is that help can come from the strangest places. We were lost and alone and certain we were going to die, but we found shelter in an abandoned cabin. We found a warning that saved our lives. We found the courage we didn't know we had. And we found Sarah, who needed us just as much as we needed to help her. Life is funny that way. You set out on a simple hiking trip, and you end up facing the worst and best parts of humanity in the same weekend. You learn what you're really made of when everything is stripped away, and all you have left is a choice. Do the easy thing, or do the right thing? We chose right, and I'm proud of that. Emma is proud of that. Sarah is alive because of that. So that's my story. That's what happened when a young couple found shelter in a deserted cabin and noticed smoke from another chimney. We could have ignored it. We could have told ourselves it wasn't our problem. We could have walked away and never looked back. But we didn't. And that, I think, is what it means to be human. Not being perfect, not being fearless, not always knowing what to do, but trying anyway, helping anyway, caring anyway, even when you're cold and lost and scared out of your mind. Especially then, because that's when it matters most. That's when a single choice can change everything. That's when ordinary people like Emma and me can become the heroes someone else desperately needs. I still remember standing in that frozen forest, watching Sarah climb back up that cliff to save us. I remember thinking that I would never forgive myself if I let her sacrifice herself. I remember deciding right then and there that some things are worth fighting for, worth suffering for, worth risking everything for. Human decency, compassion, the life of an innocent girl who deserved so much better than what those monsters did to her. We all deserve better. We all deserve to live in a world where people help each other instead of hurting each other, where people notice when something is wrong and actually do something about it, where a warning carved into a wall is taken seriously instead of ignored. That's the world I want to live in. That's the world Emma and I try to create every single day. We volunteer at a shelter for trafficking survivors now. We donate to organizations that help missing persons. We tell our story to anyone who will listen, hoping it will inspire them to pay attention, to trust their instincts, to help when they see someone in need. Because you never know when you might be the only hope someone has. You never know when your choice to help or walk away will mean the difference between life and death, between freedom and captivity, between hope and despair. So I'm asking you, whoever is reading this or hearing this story, pay attention. Notice when something feels wrong. Don't ignore your gut feelings. Don't tell yourself it's not your problem. Don't walk away from someone who needs help just because it's inconvenient or scary or complicated. Be the person who helps. Be the person who cares. Be the person who makes the hard choice because it's the right choice. Be the person we were in that forest, cold and scared and tired, but still willing to fight for a stranger's freedom, because that's what heroes do. Not the heroes in movies with superpowers and perfect hair, but real heroes, everyday heroes, people like you and me, who just decide that another person's life matters more than their own comfort. Emma and I aren't special. We're not braver or smarter or better than anyone else. We just happen to be in the right place at the right time. And we made the choice to help instead of looking away. You can make that choice too, every single day. You get chances to be someone's hero, to notice when something is wrong, to speak up when everyone else is silent, to help when everyone else walks by. Take those chances. Don't waste them, because you never know when you might be the only person who can help, the only person who notices, the only person who cares enough to do something. Be that person. The world needs more people like that. Sarah needed people like that. And somewhere out there, right now, someone else needs people like that too. Will you be one of them? I hope so. I really, really hope so. Because evil only wins when good people do nothing. Evil only survives when we look away, when we convince ourselves it's not our problem, when we choose comfort over courage. Don't let evil win. Don't look away. Don't choose comfort. Choose courage. Choose compassion. Choose to help. Choose to be the person who notices the smoke rising from a distant chimney and doesn't ignore it, who hears the cry for help and doesn't pretend they didn't hear it, who sees someone in trouble and doesn't walk past. That's my message. That's what I want you to take away from this story. Not that Emma and I are heroes, but that anyone can be a hero when it matters. That courage isn't about not being afraid, it's about being afraid and helping anyway. That's what we did. That's what you can do too. And that, my friends, is how a simple hiking trip in the mountains taught me the most important lesson of my life. Some smoke signals are warnings. Some are calls for help. And some are both. The question is, will you see them? Will you answer them? Will you be the help someone desperately needs? I hope your answer is yes, because the world needs more people who answer yes. The world needs more people who help. The world needs more people like you. Now go out there and prove me right.